Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to make this fun pull tab card and we're going to be using lots of products from Lawn Fawn today. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first set of stamps I'm going to grab is this one here, and this is the Crazy Antics stamp and coordinating die set. And the second set we'll be using is this little set here. We're going to grab quite a few of those items from the Butterfly Kisses set. I'm going to be doing my stamping with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm stamping on the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. So I went ahead and stamped all of the little images that we would need to create our little picnic scene. So let's start the coloring with 723, 815, and for all of these, I'll be using the blender N00. So to clean off your blender pen, you just scribble it on some scrap paper, and then you can go to your paper. And these are the Tombow dual brush pens. So it has a bullet tip on one end and a brush tip on the other end. If you have too much ink, you can just scribble your blender pen on your scrap paper until it goes clear. Now, for these little flowers, I'm doing them all the same, just starting with the yellow, adding a bit of orange, and then pulling it out towards the edges. And I did the same for all of those little flowers there. Now with 603, 723, and 025, I'm going to color in this little butterfly. I will be coloring in the butterflies in all different combinations of these colors that we're going to be using today. So I'll list all of those colors for you down below. And then for any of the greenery, I'm using 245 and 173. And I'm just adding a little bit of that darker green at the bottom and pulling it up towards the top. And again, I'll do all of those the same way. And then for the little popsicle here, I'm using 603 and 565. And I'm just going to put that darkest color at the bottom and pull that up towards the top. And for this one, I'm using 676 and 665, which is kind of some purpley pink tones. And again, just pulling and leaving the top the lightest. And for my little mice, I'm using 761. That's that light pink color. And then I'm using N45 and N95 for my two shades of gray. I'm just going to add some little highlights here and there and then blend that in. And I'm going to keep the center of the face the lightest there. And add a little bit more pink. And I'll do that other one the exact same way. And then to quickly color in those little popsicle sticks, I'm going to be using 977 and 990. And I'll just blend those together. And all of those colors are listed above as we went along there. Now with my Uniball white gel pen, I'm just going to add some highlights here. So I did decide to put some white in the centers of those little flowers. And then I'm just adding some little highlights here and there just to make these pop out a little bit more. Now once that's all set, I'm going to go ahead and grab the coordinating dies. I'll tape those down with a little bit of purple tape and I'll run those through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. So I'll go ahead and die cut all of these. And you can see we have all of our little pieces all set. So I'm going to set those aside for now. And I'm going to grab this yellow pattern paper here. This die I'm using is the largest die from the Outside In Stitched Rectangle Stackables. And that paper is from the Really Rainbow Scallops paper pad. And I'm using the white with yellow. And you do want to make sure those scallops are on the horizontal rather than the vertical. And then I'm using some white Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock as well. So I'm going to run both of these through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And then I'll just layer these two together. This will just give a little more substance to this pattern paper, which is a little bit thinner. I'm taping these two together using my ATG 700 permanent tape dispenser. Now we'll grab this sun. This is the outside in stitched sun, again from Lawn Fawn, and I'm going to run that through on some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. And then I want to back this with another piece of cardstock. So I'm just going to trace this sun all the way around with a pencil here, and then I'll go ahead and cut that out. I just want to put a backing on this because we're going to put that center back in the sun there. It does die cut the outside sun and then that center circle. So using my Lawn Fawn glue tube, I'm going to go ahead and glue these down. And this will also give this a little bit more thickness as well. This is going to be the little pop-up element in our pull tab. So I've grabbed another piece of paper from that paper pack, and I'm grabbing the green with the white background this time, and this will be for my grassy borders. These are the stitched hillside border dies, and again I'm using that largest rectangle die that we used before. I'm going to cut this little grassy border, and that will have stitching around all four sides. And then I want to create another border, so I'll move this other die up a little bit further on this cardstock, and we'll be cutting that down here in a second. I just want to see approximately where I need that to be. And so that will have, that back one will have stitching on the top and on the sides as well. So I can go ahead and cut away any of this excess here. So I'm just placing it in my Tim Holtz paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut that down. Now with these two borders, I'm going to use my Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink pad from Tim Holtz, and I'm just going right along the tops of those borders. Then I'll add a little bit of splattering here. I'm going to use my Distress sprayer and just add some water. So I've placed that ink down on my glass media mat, and I'm just going to spatter these two borders. And that'll just add a little bit more texture to these. Once that's done, I can go ahead and glue these two together, and I do want to leave that top without glue because we are going to be tucking a few things down in there a little bit later on. So I'm just going to glue these two together. And now with these three colors here, the Abandoned Coral, the Dried Marigold, and Squeezed Lemonade, I'm going to create the sky. So I'm just going to add this darker color right along the top of that grassy border. Now this paper doesn't blend as smoothly as your like your Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. So you do kind of have to pat the ink on and then just kind of push it gently just to get it to blend. It is a little bit more difficult to blend, but just take your time with it. So I'm just patting on plenty of ink at first and then coming back and blending it out. And then with the Squeezed Lemonade, I'm just going to do that top area. And I don't want it to be perfect. I just want to add a little bit of color here. So you can see that up close, and you still get that beautiful texture in the background from the pattern paper. Now I'll go back to the Abandoned Coral and do that in the center of this sun, nice and dark. Then I'm going to grab that Dried Marigold and go a little bit further out, and then I'll do the tips on the rays of the sun with the Squeezed Lemonade. And then I'll also pick this up and add a little bit of that Squeezed Lemonade right around the edges of that sun as well, just to finish that off. So the next thing we'll want to do is create the little pull tab here. So I'm grabbing that piece there, which will create the pull tab, and then this will create the little notch at the top of the card. This creates the little stabilizer bar. That creates the little arrow for our pull tab, and that creates the little slot we need. This is the Let's Toast Pull Tab Add-on die set from Lawn Fawn. So I'm going to tape down this little notch right at the very top of the card there, and then I'll die cut the rest of those pieces from some Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. So now we want this sun to pull up and down on the card, but you see when it comes down, that piece hangs over the bottom. So we need to get rid of that. So I'm just going to figure out approximately where I need to cut that. So I'm basically cutting off those 3 rays at the bottom and then just a little bit more of that next ray. And then I need to go up another 1/4 of an inch from there because we have to leave room to tape down our grassy border. So I'm using that line that I created, and then I'm going to move up another 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just using the grids on my Tim Holtz paper trimmer and moving that up. So you'll see there that I cut about a 1/4 inch up from that line that we created. So now I have the sun for the pull tab, and that's my little grassy border, and we've left enough room again for the tape at the bottom. Now with this pull tab mechanism, I'm going to fold this part towards me and then away from me, and I'll do the same thing on the other side, towards me and away from me. And I'm just pressing that down with my bone folder. That's kind of like a little fan fold that we've created there. And then our sun will sit on that little tab. That will create the mechanism that we need to pull this in and out. So I'm going to put that pull tab up just a little bit from the bottom of the sun there, maybe about 1/8 of an inch. And then I need to figure out where that slot needs to go. So I want to make sure this is centered. So when that little sun is pulled up, it's going to stop where that little tab is. So I'm going to mark the pencil mark there. And then again at the bottom. So I've just created 2 little pencil marks. We'll be erasing those later on. And then I want to center this notch on the center of the card. So I'm just going to draw a line from those 2 little pencil marks we created, but on the center of the card. And again, I'll erase those other 2 marks. Now I want to position my little slot die right there in the center. I'm running that through the die cutting machine. And then since we want it a little bit longer, I'm going to go ahead and position this again right at the bottom of that line. And just make sure I line it up with the one that we already die cut. And then I'll run that through again. And that'll just give us a little bit longer slot here. So you can see that there. Now these little tabs will fold in and go from the back to the front of the card. And you can see that currently my little pull tab is a little bit too long. So what we're going to do is cut off that top portion. So you want to push that tab all the way down towards the bottom. And then I can just draw a straight line here. And then I'll just cut away that excess. Now, just so that when it pulls in and out, it'll match the background, I'm just adding some squeezed lemonade to that tab. And so when it pulls up, you'll see that it's still that yellow color. Now I've got the little tab for the top of my pull tab, and that's got the little arrow on it. And I'm going to put some glue on both sides of this. And I'll just position that right at the top of that pull tab. And now I want to fold this little stabilizer bar. So I'm going to go ahead and use the score lines to fold this. And then on the back side, I want to place a little bit of the 1/4 inch double-sided tape from Lawn Fawn right on that back center part of this mechanism. So I'm just going to place a couple strips of tape there, again, right on the middle part. Then I'll just remove the backing from that. Now I can go ahead and place this tab right back through that slot there, again, just pushing that through from the back towards the front, opening that up. And then I want to position this little stabilizer bar up towards the top, but I don't want it to show through that notch at the top. So just below the notch, just going to tape that down. That'll just keep this from wobbling around when we use the pull tab. Now I'll place a little bit of tape right on that little tab there and then close this up. And then you do want to check this. I'm going to use some anti-static powder from my powder tool here just to make this move in and out very easily. Now once that's all set, I can put a little bit of glue on these two tabs or tape. I'm going to use some tape here, but you do want to use something nice and sturdy. So I'm placing some tape on each of those tabs, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing from the tape, and I'll position the sun. Again, I want to make sure I'm about a 1/4 inch up from the bottom of the card when I do that. So I like to just play with this a little bit just to make sure it moves really easily. So pull it up and down quite a few times just to get that mechanism working. Now I've got a standard A2 size card, and I'm just pressing that crease out with my bone folder. And then I'm going to position this on the front of the card, but I'm going to pop this up. I'm going to stack 2 sections of Scotch foam mounting tape on top of one another, just to make sure I leave plenty of room for this mechanism. Then I'm going to stack a second piece up on top of that one. And then I'll apply the rest of the tape the same way. And again, you want to avoid that mechanism. So I'm placing the tape all around the sides, not on the mechanism itself. Then I'm going to tape that down and just again double check that my pull tab is working properly. So the next thing I'll do is place some tape, and I'm double stacking the tape again on the grassy border. I'm adding a little bit of the anti-static powder tool just along that bottom edge to make sure my sun doesn't stick when it goes in and out. And then I've got that double stacked on 3 sides of this grassy border, the bottom and the 2 sides. And then I'm again double checking to make sure that moves freely. And by stacking that tape, again, we leave enough room for this sun to move in and out. Now I've got all my little pieces here, and I'm going to start assembling my little scene. And again, I'm using the glue tube to glue everything down here. I'm just going to add my little mice, and they're having a little picnic here in the sunshine. And this card was inspired by the current Lawn Fawn blog challenge, which is to be inspired by a book, movie, or song. So I was inspired by the song Here Comes the Sun from the Beatles. So I thought it would be fun to have that sun popping out from behind this grassy border. And I just think with everything we've all been through, I'm just looking forward to things getting better and the sun coming out. It's springtime. And I just wanted to do a happy, fun, cheerful card. So I hope this makes you smile and gives you a little bit of cheer and hope for the future here. And so again, I'll just add all of these little pieces. I'm just going to kind of lay these out here so you can see what I'm going to do. Now, as far as the butterflies go, I did add one there up at the top. And I did end up having to move that a little bit later on, that one at the very top on the left there, but I'll show you that here in a second. Because I did stamp out my sentiment, and that one was in the way. So I'll glue on all of these little pieces. I did that off camera, and I'll show you that again here in 1 second. So everything's glued on, and now I want to do the same for the card. So I'm using these alphabet set, and you can see that you get, this is wonderful because you get all multiples of letters in the large and the smaller size, in the capitals and lowercase. And this is the Riley's ABC set. So I pulled out the ones that again create the sentiment, Here Comes the Sun. And I'm stamping that on some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I just separated those words a little bit because we're going to be cutting those out. So I cut those down to size. I just used my paper trimmer to do that. You could just use your scissors. And then with the squeezed lemonade, I'm just going to go around the edges of those. Now here's where you can see that little butterfly was in the way there. So I did end up carefully removing that, and then I just placed that wording right over the top. So I'm just taping these down with a little bit of tape from my Tombow Permanent Mini Tape Dispenser, and then I'm going to replace that butterfly with a different one. I did have a few left over from before. Now I'm going to take my Zig black pen, this is the pure black, and I'm just going to go right around the edges of all of these little sentiments, and that'll make them look a little bit more like they were stamped on here. And then I'll just add some little dots to these just to make them a little more whimsical and just to tie them all together here. Now for the sun, I thought it would be cute to add a little face. So I'm using the Ocean Shelfie set. And I'm using that little octopus. I thought the size was perfect, and I did want to stamp the little face on there. So size-wise, this was perfect, so I'm just masking off with some Post-it notes the rest of the little octopus, and I'm just inking up the eyes and the mouth, and I'm going to stamp that right in the center there. And you could certainly do this before you assemble your card if you're worried about that. So let me give you a closer look at this card. And again, this is inspired by the current Lawn Fawn Blog Challenge, which I have a link to on my blog, and you can check that out. And then you see our little sun pops right up. I just think this is so much fun and just so cheerful. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. As always, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.